or they can follow, or you can all follow along. I'm Felina Cordova Marks. I'm an assistant professor at the College of Public Health at the University of Arizona. I am also the director of Indige Wellbeing and a member of the Hopi tribe. So I'm super excited to see everyone and all the classrooms. This is awesome. This is so cool. And I'm going to pass it to Billy Carson to intro himself.
Hello, everyone. Like Dr. Grove Marks just said, my name is Billy Carson. I am a second-year doctoral student at the College of Public Health, working under Dr. Grove Marks. I am also a member of Okea Wingay, formerly San Juan Pueblo, and I am the program coordinator for Indigenous well-being. So excited to be here, and again, thank you to everybody who has joined us today. Especially thank you to Indian Oasis Intermediate School. It was exciting to see you guys sign up. So wonderful to have you guys all here. So and now thank you.
Thank you, Billy. So I'd like to welcome our guest, Traci Sorell. And she is a U of A alumni, I believe. So hopefully we can find out more about her ties to Tucson and the U of A. And absolutely, I will pass it off to her to intro herself. So thank you for being here, Traci, and everyone.
Widow, thank you, Dr. Cordova Marks and Billy Carson. I am delighted to be here with all of you, and I am super duper excited to have students participating as well. One of my favorite things writing books for young people is getting to visit with young people in schools, whether that's like we're doing today online together or in person. And I'm coming to you live from the Cherokee Nation Reservation in Northeast Oklahoma. As Dr. Cordova Marks mentioned, though, I am a U of A grad. So I'm the first person in my family to go to college. I went to the University of California, Berkeley. And after that, I went to the University of Arizona, moved to Tucson, and got my master's degree in American Indian Studies, focused on federal Indian law and policy. And later on, I went to law school at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. I had never lived that far north. There had a big winter coat. It was quite a change coming from Tucson, where we generally were wearing shorts all the time. But I have used that education to help Native nations across the country and encouraged other young people to get their education and use their gifts on behalf of their Native nation or others. And now I find myself writing books for young people. And so I'm going to share a little bit with you today about why I write those books. And then I'm going to read Powwow Day and answer your questions. So I do want to say that the winter season, typically is that time of rest and renewal and creativity. And as an author now, I really take that to heart. It is a time for me where I am not on the road traveling, and I try to stay home and get stories written, spend time revising stories and preparing myself for the spring, when I will again be in classrooms or maybe at book festivals across the country. I know with the mild temperatures in Tucson and there in Southern Arizona, at the TO-Res and out at Pasco Yaqui, that often November to February is a time you're out and about because it's so wonderful. And summer sometimes is when we're inside doing more indoor things. But the reason that I write for young people is that I am very aware, because I now have a 13-year-old, but I started looking at writing for young people when my son was just in preschool, and realizing that the things that he was being taught in school and things he was learning were pretty much not different than what I had learned when I was in elementary school, which was in the late 1970s and early 80s. And I got really angry because I said, you know what? All this information that's available today, why are we learning the same things at his age in the 21st century that I learned as a child? That is called intentional ignorance. It's where we have not updated the information that we have available to share that with our young people. And I said, I will have no part in that. And my mother always says, do not complain about something you are not willing to be part of the solution to. And so I thought, okay, I have this education. I have, I didn't learn about these things until I went to college. I knew some things that had happened to me as a Cherokee person growing up here in Oklahoma, and things that had happened to my family and my ancestors. But I did not know what happened before to all these other tribes. So sometimes your history and my history, if you're from a tribal nation, have been similar in things that have happened to us. But other times there have been completely different things that have happened to some tribes that did not happen to us. And I thought, why was I able to get through elementary and middle school and high school and not know this? So that's really one of the things that I work on. The other thing is that if you look at the last census, and that's when the federal government decides to count everyone in the country. So the 2020 census, it happens every 10 years, showed us that people under the age of 30 in this country are majority non-white. That's even more so for people under the age of 18. Well, guess what? I write for people under the age of 18. And so we now, as a country, for those under age 30, look like the rest of the world. The rest of the world is not majority white. And yet our books for young people do not reflect that. And certainly the stories that we have about Native nations, our tribes across the country, are not reflecting all the different tribes that are available. When I think about stories that have Tohono people in it, I can't think of very many, right? Not for young people. There was a book that was published around the time that I was in Arizona called Sing Down the Rain. But I don't even think it was a TO author. I think it might have been an artist from the community. But those are stories that need to be told, and you all have fantastic stories to share. So please think about whether that's through words or art or both, sharing your stories. And winter is a wonderful time, any season is, but to be thinking about crafting your stories. And I know that because curriculum hasn't changed, teachers, librarians, your family, people around you are looking at what they can buy to help you, what they can check out from the library to help you see the world that you live in, right? Which is, again, much more diverse than the one that they all grew up in and that I grew up in. So I write what are called trade books, and that are books that you can buy at the bookstore. Like I say, you can get them at the library. Your teachers are available, can have them in their classroom, etc. I know that kids love fiction and nonfiction. Why do I know that? Because that's what I loved when I was growing up. I still love that, so I like to write that too. And I want to make sure that there are books that show Native nations and their people today, as well as our past, accurately available for all of you. And I know that if we don't have Native people sharing those stories, the likelihood that they're going to be accurate and not cause you all any harm when you read them is probably pretty low. So one of the other things that I like to do is to help Native people who want to share their stories for young people, whether that's writing them or sharing their art, helping them get the information they need to share their stories with publishers. So that's just kind of a little bit about, kind of who I write for. But the other part of it is, why do I write? And that goes back to, again, that college education, that I did not understand all the things that had happened to a variety of different tribes until I was in school. And I thought, how could we be so invisible? How could we be erased from the curriculum when we have been here for tens of thousands of years? We have been nations, sovereign nations on this continent, from the Arctic down to what is called Cape Horn or Tierra del Fuego, the tip of the other end of the continent. Tens of thousands of years, all these Native nations who are trading, who have land and people, all of these things, none of this is acceptable to me, that we don't know all of these things. This country, the United States, has only been around for less than 250 years. So it's very, very new. And those of us who are citizens of Native nations, our citizenship is first in our native nation. And secondly, in the United States, because like I say, it's a new country, right? It's very, very young compared to our native nations. But you know what? The majority of people in this country do not know that. They think of us as culture clubs. They don't even understand that we have a separate legal and political status. So that's another thing that I try to bring into my work. Again, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, is showing us in everyday life as full humans, because we don't often have our full humanity shown either. And the thing is, thankfully, I'm not the only person doing that. There are a number of people who are working and sharing their stories now with young people. So it's a wonderful time to be in this industry. Now, with that, I'm going to stop talking and switch over to Share Powwow Day. And I'll show you a slide with some of my books, though, that I've published. Then we'll jump into Powwow Day. I'll read that, and then I'll talk to you about how the book's made. Because a lot of times I get questions about like, oh, how did you create this book? And I said, well, I wrote the words, but there's a whole team of people, because bookmaking is a team sport. And I'm just one part of the book. And yes, my words got the process started, but there's no way what you hold, this pretty book you hold in your hand, does not exist without other people, because I can't draw to save my life. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. And so these are the books that I have out in the world so far. And I have 2 more books next year. Like I said, I write fiction and nonfiction. You're welcome to go to my website, Traci Sorell, TraciSorell.com, and get information on each of these books. But my books for this year were Powwow Day, which came out in February. And then in October was my first chapter book biography. And it was on Wilma Mankiller, who's the former chief of the Cherokee Nation. So, a lot of times we think about leaders, and I always tell people, you don't have to have a fancy education. You don't have to come from a lot of money. We're all given gifts and ways that we can contribute to our community. And Wilma Mankiller is a perfect example of that. She came from a very poor family. Her family was relocated when there was a federal program in the 1950s that moved a lot of Native people from their tribal communities into cities. So she was moved from the Cherokee Reservation out to San Francisco. And Wilma did remarkable things for our tribe and for Native people in general. So, I don't want students to ever think that they can't contribute. I've also written about another Cherokee woman, Mary Golda Ross, who was the first woman engineer for Lockheed Corporation and the first Native woman engineer in the United States. Just a remarkable person, but everywhere she went, and that's the thing that I emphasize in the story, is that she brought her Cherokee values with her. And everything that I saw written about her, they would mention that she was Cherokee, but I was like, she does not do the things she would do and the things she accomplished without being Cherokee, because she grew up at a time when women were not encouraged to get a degree from college, certainly not in math, to think about being an engineer or any of that. And she was very much a mentor to young Native people. And We Are Grateful is a story about contemporary Cherokee people. I couldn't believe that there wasn't a book showing us in our present day lives. And so that starts in fall with the Cherokee New Year and goes to the 4 seasons. At the Mountain's Base shines a light on Native women who serve in the military and the families that wait for them. That's a poem. Indian No More was written by my friend Charlene Willing McManus, who as a child experienced her tribe, the Grand Ronde Nation, being terminated, which was a federal program and law that was passed by Congress and signed by President Eisenhower in the 1950s. And she was moved from the reservation in Northwest Oregon to Los Angeles. And so it's a fictional book because it Regina, the main character, is a combination of her experiences and those of other people who were relocated as children. And so this is something that we don't talk about. We don't talk about, we'll talk about the civil rights era, we'll talk about the space race and the Cold War during the 1950s, but we don't talk about all these Native people, tens of thousands of Native families across the country who were removed from their reservations and moved to cities. So many people, over 2/3 of Native people, over 70% of Native people live in cities or suburbs outside of their homelands, and in large part because of this time period and this federal policy. And then We Are Still Here is an overview book. So one of the things, like I said, I was really mad when I was in college and I was like, why haven't I learned this before? Well, that book is aimed at those in upper elementary and beyond to say, hey, here's what happens after 1871 when the federal government said, we're not signing any more treaties with tribes, because they had signed over 400 treaties. Well, does that mean diplomacy? They just stop having relations with tribes and meeting government to government and going over things? Absolutely not. That continues to today. But again, do we talk about that in the classroom? No. So this book features children who are in a Native school, learning about those 12 topics and then teaching them to each other, as well as parents and other people in the community. And there's a wonderful timeline in the backs, and you can read even more about what's gone on in each of those time periods and under those topics, and do more research yourself. So that's just, like I say, a survey of what I've got out so far. 2 more books this year, but I have 5 more books total that are on the way. And with that, let's dive into Powwow Day. Now, remember how I said I'm not the only person who's working on the book. So kind of the person that comes in next is the editor, and that's the, in essence, overall manager. So they help me make sure my words are as tight as they can possibly be. Like, I've gotten rid of passive verbs. And so I always ask students when I'll do writing workshops, do you have any passive verbs? Get rid of them. Am, are, is, was, were, could, would, should, have, has, had, to be, will be, being. Because guess what? That drags down the story. Now, sometimes you need those in dialogue, of course, but otherwise get rid of them. Just highlight them in the paper and come up with a more active verb. So once the editors help me with that, then the editor is looking for an illustrator who is going to help get this story presented to you on the page in full color art. And like I said, some people write the words and do the art. I can't do that. I did not keep practicing drawing when I was your age. So, if you are currently, love to draw, keep doing that. It's a wonderful way to make art and to share with others. Madeline Goodnight is a Chickasaw Nation citizen. She lives in a couple of hours west of me in Oklahoma City. And she is a fantastic artist. I'm just delighted with the book and how colorful it is. She's wonderful to do presentations with. And so this is actually a presentation that we put together and we've given to schools and to others. And so, like I say, I'm delighted to talk about her work and mine today. So let's read Powwow Day. And I'm gonna read from here since I've got things on my screen that I can't see all my words. River, wake up, Amber whispers. My eyes open. Today is Powwow Day. Then I remember. No dancing, no jingle dress competition for me. Not at this tribal powwow. I wish my hair weren't still so short. I sigh. Mama lays out the moccasins that match my dress. But everyone wants to see you, Amber reminds me. Why? I can't dance like I could before I got sick. But you will dance again, she responds. I stay silent as Daddy drives us to the powwow grounds. I usually savor the scents of sage and sweetgrass, but not today. The breeze prickles my skin. I'm tired already. Daddy arranges our chairs near the family drum. Mama squeezes me close. Doing okay? I nod, but I'm not. I watch my friend Dawn get ready to dance. No, I'm not okay. Then the powwow begins as the MC calls, "Time for grand entry, stand up. Gentlemen, remove your hats." My uncles strike a large drum together. Bam, 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 bam. They sing, "Eya, eya, we-ya." I make a decision. At least I can dance grand entry. You sure? Amber asks. Yep. Grandpa leads with the eagle staff. Other warriors carry flags into the arena. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. Elders head up the long line, oldest to youngest, traditional, fancy, grass, and jingle dress. Dawn squeezes my hand as we wait with Amber and the other girls to dance into the arena. My feet stay still. I can't feel the drum's heartbeat. Amber grabs my arm. You okay? She leads me back to our seats. Everyone dances in and moves around the circle, all connected to the drum, Mother Earth, and one another. Everyone. Amber, Dawn, our cousins, our friends. Everyone but me. I watch through wet eyes. After grand entry, an elder prays that our dances honor the Creator, that our culture and language will stay strong, and that healing will come to those who need it, like me. I rise to join the intertribal dance, but I can't focus. Mama's steady hand guides me into my seat. The drum's heartbeat surrounds me. Bam, 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 bam. I lean against Daddy and watch the competitions. Traditional dancers move and draw me into their story. Fancy dancers twirl and ribbons whirl. Graceful grass dancers sway and weave themselves around the circle. The drum starts its beat inside me. Then the MC calls, "Girls, jingle dress, head to the arena." For a second, my heart leaps. But I can't do the healing dance today, even though I need it. Dawn said she'll dance for me. My heart swells as I see Dawn, my sis, our cousins and friends step and turn, graceful and fast. Their feather fans wave, rows of cones clink, clink, clink on their dresses. I sit up tall as they come close. Judges move around the powwow arena and record scores. But the girls don't dance for the judges. They dance for the Creator, the ancestors, their families, and everyone's health, including mine. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. I stand, I open my heart. I feel the drum fully now. Then I know I will join them at the next powwow. I will dance again. And that is the story of Powwow Day. And on the back, there are 2 pages that explain and have more information about powwows. And the powwows are celebrations of dance and song and culture and community that started with the Plains tribes, and other dances have come in from other places like the jingle dress, which there's information on the right side about how the jingle dress originated. And it was actually during the last really big global pandemic, which was in the 20th century. So that's when there was a flu epidemic that passed around the world. And I talk about how during this recent pandemic, there were many jingle dress dancers who recorded themselves dancing and uploaded it and shared it on YouTube and other social media outlets to let people know that they were dancing and praying for everyone's health. And so that, of course, is what River needs in this story as she is recovering. But the other parts, like I say, of a powwow are defined and mentioned there, because I know not everyone's been to a powwow. And certainly for myself as a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, that is not our traditional type of dance. But we do host a powwow during our annual holiday to invite other tribes, because we have many tribes around us that are Plains tribes and do have powwows, to come and to join us during our celebration of signing of our Constitution. So a little bit about my journey to publication. And we won't go through all of this, but I think it's important to note, because one of the questions I get asked is, well, how long does it take to write a book? And it can take a long time. Each story takes whatever amount of time that it needs. When I first wrote this book, as you see there at the top, in August of 2014. So how long ago was that? A long time ago. So over 8 years ago, but I wrote it as an early reader. And so those of you who have read Early Readers, that is the first book that has a tighter, smaller, amount of vocabulary that someone would read on their own. And I really wanted it as a concept book, just following a family, having a day at the powwow. And friends read it, writer friends read it, and said, no, it should be a picture book. The words and the pictures can be so much more dynamic than in an early reader. And I said, okay, fine. So I reworked it. And you'll see the words ba-dum, grass dancers sway, ribbons whirl. Those are the only words that remain from the original draft in the final. And I like to share that with especially students, because a lot of times, you have to write things very quickly and hand them into your teacher. And so that's what we would call a first draft, right? And then other times they will ask you to revise something. So they'll give you comments about it. Maybe you've had to share it with classmates and your classmates have given you some feedback about it. Well, as an author, I never, ever turn in a first draft to an editor. I'm always revising. I share it with other writers. I have people who don't know anything about my story listen to it and see, does it flow like a river? Am I making my points clear? Again, not using many words in a picture book, but it's important that I'm focused on, telling the most compelling story that I can. And so I ended up revising this book quite a bit. And I had suggestions from editors about how I could make it better. And they said, no, it definitely needs to have a character and you need to introduce some conflict. And I was like, okay, I really wanted it to be a concept book. But so I finally did. And I went to highlights, and that's the picture of the cabin you see there. So if you're familiar with High Five and the highlights magazines, maybe you got to read those at the library or in your classroom, or maybe you've had them at home. They have a writers and illustrators retreat center where you can go and take workshops, but you can also just go and work on books. So I was there for a workshop and I said, well, I don't have a novel in verse, which is a novel made up of poems that I, have to share. But I do have this picture book manuscript that I'm working on. And so I got wonderful feedback. And right after that workshop, I sold the book. So, but then it took a long time after that before it was published. So again, August of 2014 to February of 2022 before it comes out. That is 7.5 years. So some of you listening may be younger than 7.5. And that means my book is older than you are, this story. Yeah. I see baby, Billy's baby is awake from his nap. And so the book is definitely older than 5 months old. So this is Maddie's timeline. So after we get the text finalized and they say, yep, these words are the ones we're going to use. Then they say, okay, let's get an illustrator. And so they send it out to illustrators. Normally in the picture book world, and sometimes even with novels for the cover art, you're not expected to be consulted about who they're going to choose. For native books, we do tend to be consulted because they want to make sure that whoever is chosen can, do this work. So, hopefully it's a native artist, but, again, this person could be from a different tribe than what's being represented. And so it's like, make sure that they, feel good about it and are willing to do the research to have it be accurate. So Maddie doesn't get the manuscript till 2019. And in 2020, she does 3 rounds of sketches. Now, what happens in 2020? Our world shuts down, right? So she cannot go to any powwows because there aren't any powwows. So she can't sit and draw anything, just looking at people or kind of being in that environment. So she said she put on YouTube video after YouTube video of people at Powwow. So she would have the music and be immersed in that in her studio as she was drawing. The next year, then we get the sketches finalized, and each round of those sketches I provided feedback on, and I'll show you that slide in a minute. And then the next year she worked on color. So there were 3 rounds of color. We got that finalized. Then it went off to the printer. We did the cover reveal when people knew that it was available to be purchased and they could pre-order. And then in November, the ARC, or the advanced reader copy, was sent out to reviewers. And Maddie says the things that she looks for is, when she reads the words, the story, because it just comes to her black and white on a sheet of paper. It's just like I printed it out of Word, She wants to have a deep connection to the story and the characters and the setting. She wants a unique point of view. She's really drawn to things that are diverse representation and storytelling. It needs to speak to her heart. And she just wants to, as she's reading it, she also said, feel like she's already seeing the images in her mind that she's going to put into the book. So after I write it, like I said, it goes to the editor, who's Karen, the designer, who was our designer, Kat, and then to the agents of Maddie, and then it goes to Maddie. And whenever Maddie has something done, it works its way back through that to me. So there's lots of people, lots of comments that are floating around. This is some of the pictures that Maddie used as inspiration. Like I said, she couldn't go to any powwows because we didn't have any. Everything was shut down. So she looked on the internet for videos, as well as just looking at all the beautiful regalia that, everyone makes by hand. And for those of you who aren't familiar with powwows that are on here, none of these should ever be referred to as costumes. They are absolutely people's, like I say, they're regalia, and they are generally made by numerous people in the family, community, that all come together to outfit a dancer in their clothing. But just beautiful, beautiful. There on the right side, you see a jingle dress dancer like River and her sister Amber and Dawn and their cousins. So this is an example of like what the initial sketch looked like, the second round, the third round, and then what you see final color. So she started out thinking about, oh yeah, when I go to my grandma's house, I'm sitting in the car and we drive forever. But on that page, not only are they driving to the powwow grounds, but they also have to set up. And so I was like, when it got to me, I said, there's a lot going on in the words that we need to show a little more of this. She can interpret it however she wants, but it needs to show up on the page. And so then I was like, and definitely they should be lawn chairs, something that's going to support their back sitting, not just like one of those little pop-up stools that you can put anywhere. So they chose to kind of have the drive as well as the setup of the powwow represented. And then for this next one, she had come up with more people in the spread, and the editor and art director were like, we really want to focus in on River with her friend Dawn, and then the other picture with her and her sister Amber, and just have that focus there. One of the things that Maddie had to keep track of is everyone has a different outfit. When you get the book, whether you check it out from the library or you have it in your classroom or you buy a copy, every single person in the book has a different outfit. And so there's a lot of detail in every single person's regalia. So she has to keep track of that. And she said, this is a very tiny representation of this huge color chart that shows everyone's skin color, hair color, all the colors in their outfit. There's different directions and designs on, like I say, each person's regalia that have to stay the same through the whole book, and they don't match anyone else's. So it's not like, oh, well, I'll just take this person's design, stick it on this other person and give it a different color. No. So there's a lot of detail, and she does this work digitally, which just, like I say, blows my mind, the layering that she does. But I've seen her draw this in an exam, in a demo, and I'm just so impressed. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I look forward to opening it up to your questions. And I don't know, Dr. Cordova Marks, if you want people to put those in the chat or to use the raise the hand button or how you want to handle that, but I'm looking forward to all of those.
Either works. If you have a question and you want to ask it yourself, feel free to raise your hand, or you can put it into the chat. Any questions from the schools?
While we're waiting for those questions to come in, I will say that I just got to go to New York City on December 9th to Penguin Random House, which is the publisher of my next book. And I got an early copy of the actual book. So it's called Contenders, 2 Native Baseball Players, 1 World Series. And this is Charles Bender. He's Ojibwe from the White Earth Reservation in northwestern Minnesota. And this is John Myers, who's Kauai from Santa Rosa Reservation, which is south of Riverside, California. He's in the National Baseball Hall of Fame, and he is not just an accomplished catcher, but also batter, and led his team for 3 seasons. So they played against each other in the 1911 World Series, but both had very distinguished major league careers. And there were a lot of folks who, a lot of men who were playing Major League Baseball at that time. So I wanted to share that story because I didn't know that story. And I'm really, really excited to have this story out because we have 4 Cherokee Nation citizens who are right-handed pitchers right now playing Major League Baseball that I know many young people probably don't have any idea about. But remember how I said I'm not a good drawer? Well, Aragon Star, who is Kickapoo, is. And so this is a beautiful rendition of the stadiums for both of the players. One played for what the team was called the New York Giants at the time, and the other one was with the Philadelphia Athletics. But I love how she uses their Ojibwe and Kauai designs in this. So let me show you just a little bit here of the inside. Aragon has done lots of comics work, and she's just incredibly talented. But for Charles Bender's, she's got the Ojibwe art, the floral pattern that she uses for his childhood scenes. And for Myers, she uses the Kauai, who are known for their basketry, some designs and stuff. So there's just lots of gorgeous art in here. And I wanted to show, it was the first time that 2 Native baseball players were playing on teams against each other in the World Series. So it was a big thing in the media, but also how they played with so much racism against them by fellow players, managers, fans, and the way they were depicted in the newspaper. And, of course, our Native baseball players still face that today when they play the Atlanta team, and just the derogatory chants and mockery that is made of Native nations when they play there. So it's like sometimes things haven't changed, as much as we want to think that things have improved, they really haven't. I'm going to check the chat real quick and see if there's any questions. Yeah, I see a question here from Kyle. It says, how long have you been writing? Great question, Kyle. I actually first thought about it in 2013. And so that's 9 years ago, I guess. And then in 2015, I said to myself, are you going to do this for real, or is this going to be a hobby? Because I was doing a lot of work with Native nations at the time, writing grants and helping tribes with tribal codes. And I thought, if you're going to get serious about this, you need to do that. And so a few months later, I wrote We Are Grateful, Ojali Haliga, which isn't the first book I wrote. Like I say, Powwow Day Star, I started writing that in 2014, but I got serious about submitting them to publishers. And so that book was actually purchased 3 months later, and which is super fast. Things in publishing take a super duper long time. So that's a great question. It says, what tribe, JS Torres says, what tribe is inspired by this again? So the Jingle Dress Dance comes to us from the Ojibwe people, which are located up in the Anishinaabe up in the Great Lakes area. And if you've read, and I don't have my copy here, Ancestor Approved, which some of you may have read in your classes. That's a middle grade short story anthology that has all these different characters meeting up at the University of Michigan Powwow. So I was asked to contribute a short story to that. And so I have these characters who go there. And in that story, I have more text and more time to flesh them out. And it's told several months after Powwow Day occurs. So it's the older sister Amber. The story is centered around her. And we learn that their dad is Sault Ste. Marie, Ojibwe. And if you've ever been to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, it's right there across before you cross over into Canada. And I've visited up there many times and done school visits and have very dear friends up there. And their mom is from Turtle Mountain, Ojibwe, which is in north central North Dakota. And I've, again, lived in North Dakota and done a lot of work at Turtle Mountain. So I centered it on those two, the family on those two tribes. Cirilo Flores asks, Lolita asks, in what month does Powwow Day take place? It's definitely in the summer, because they're all in short sleeves and up north, where we wouldn't be burning up. You wouldn't have a powwow, in July in Tucson or early August, not outside anyway. Good question. Let's see. Alana Nez says, which one of my books that I've written is my favorite? Usually my favorite is the one that I'm working on right now, because it's the puzzle that I have not solved. And so I'm trying to figure that out. And right now I'm working on a middle grade nonfiction book about called Riding the Trail, Cherokees Remember the Removal. And it's about how our tribe has a leadership development program for young people 16 to 24, where they ride their bikes and retrace the trail that our ancestors were forced to make from our homelands back east to what is now our reservation in Oklahoma. And it's over 950 miles. So they take history courses together, they take language courses, they physically train together, and over about a 6-7 month period, they have their genealogy done so they know which route their ancestors were taken on, because some people went over water, other people went on various land routes, but they retraced the northern route from our last capital, New Echota, which is now in North Georgia, all the way to our capital now, which is Tahlequah, Oklahoma. So that's a great question. Adrian Valdez says, what is your best-selling book? That would be my first one, the one up here in orange, We Are Grateful, Ojali Haliga. It came out of the gate very strong. And so I'm grateful to that for my first book. It got 4-star reviews and lots of national awards. People just seem to love it. And among Native people, it really sparks in them a discussion of, well, what are we grateful for every season? Because that's what the book is about. It's about the Cherokee value of how we're taught to be grateful, not just when things are wonderful, but we really have a concept of dohi, or balance. And so just like we can't always want it to be summer or always be winter or always fall or spring, what across the 4 seasons are we grateful for? And the book starts in fall with Cherokee New Year and then ends, of course, in the summer. And that's when we have our big Cherokee National Holiday celebration. Let's see here. Okay, Erica Tenorio says, I wrote and sketched a story in Tohono O'odham back in 2018 as an assignment for my autumn class. I would love to sit down and render the story again, but digitally now. If possible, what tips do you have for those who have a story like this and want to have the story out and available to our communities? I mean, certainly you can, some people choose to self-publish. If you just want it for your family or like immediate community, that is a way to quickly have it done. If you would like it out for broader distribution, the reason that I don't self-publish is because I want every school and library and household to easily be able to get the books that I publish. And to do that, I have to look at where are the people that can distribute those books across this country across this continent, around the world. And so I trade publish those books. So if you're interested in trade publishing, then certainly you can work to write and illustrate that and get that prepared. And you're welcome to reach out to me on my website on the contact page. And we can chat more about that there, because we certainly need to have many more stories than we currently have out in the world that reflect our communities, currently as they are, into the future, but also, accurate representations of our past. It's just of vital importance. Let's see.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'll
If not,
finish through and see if hands are up. No, okay.
any hands.
All
What
right.
do you do to take care of your own personal wellness?
Ooh, well, let me just say that has not been, 2022 has not been a banner year for that. I have really struggled with all of the expectations people have, where it's like, oh, pre-pandemic, you were in person. During the pandemic, we're virtual. Now we can do both. So we'll do all the things. And I have struggled to get time for myself, as well as for just self-care, but also to get writing done. And so one of the things as the year has gone on is I've just started putting stronger and stronger boundaries in place and kind of moving more things out, so that today is, my last day. This is my last public event for the year. And I am not on the road again until the very end of March. So we will have had spring equinox before I go out again, which I'm ecstatic about. But it is also a time where I really am prioritizing my own health. And one of the things that has not been centered or focused on this year is my physical health. I have not prioritized sleep, hydration, exercise, all kinds of things. And so I'm excited to have that as my focus for the next 3 months, in addition to just devoting myself to writing and spending time with my family, and hoping to do less events this next year, just to make sure that I maintain that balance, because it's something that you have to be really conscious of. Even a decade ago, authors and illustrators were not expected to really be involved in the marketing or talking about their books or doing that. And that's not the expectation now. We definitely have more of a public persona, and not everyone does that, but the vast majority do. And certainly for the Native authors and illustrators, I know the majority of us are out, sharing our books, and we certainly want to connect with, our Native students and our Native communities. And so again, ultimately though, they want to have new work from you. And so you have to carve out that time, but you can't carve out that time if you're not in a place of feeling like you can be creative, because you're worn out. So this is the first day of kind of the rest of my life, is the way I'm looking at it.
Last 3 questions, they're all from the schools. So
Okay.
the first one from Marcos. That's
Okay.
and then below those are all classrooms.
Okay. How long does your book take to make, Adrian? Oh, Adrian, I wish I could say there was like a formula and it's like, 2 weeks here, 2 months there. Every book is on its own timeline. And even if I write it quickly, like We Are Grateful, Ojali Haliga, the book, when I wrote it to when I submitted it, it was literally no more than the 3rd draft. That book was the ancestors just working through me, and Une Lena are the one who provides all. A book has never come that easily to me since then. But it still took over 2 years, to get out in the world, because there's an illustrator, there's a whole publication process. The books are sent over to China to be printed, and they've got to come in a container ship. So there's just a whole process that's involved. But some books, let's say the illustrator's booked up, but they really want to use that illustrator. So it may be a couple of years of just sitting there to wait on when the illustrator's available. So I just never really know. And I'm always grateful to have the book out in the world, Natalie asks, how many books have I written? Well, 11 so far. And I'm working on number 12 for right now. And so I'm excited to have that done. I have also contributed to anthologies. What are anthologies? That sounds like a big word. Well, it just means collections. So you'll find my poems in some anthologies. Like I said, the short story and Ancestor Approved, where you can follow River and Amber and their family in a little bit longer adventure. And I interviewed a number of people who went to the University of Michigan because I hadn't been to their powwow, and talked to people at the university, got their plans, the layout of the place and everything, so I can make sure my story was accurate. But yeah, I've done a number of things. I did a graphic script for Wonderful Women of the World, which featured Tira Fraser, who's the first Indigenous woman to create an airline from scratch in Canada. She's Métis. So, I've gotten to do a number of things. I love writing in different formats and challenging myself. One of the books that I have coming this next year is called Mascot. I co-wrote that with poet Charles Waters, and it's about 6th, 8th graders at a middle school who are looking at the mascot issue. The Braves are the school's mascot, and I'd never written a first novel, a novel of poems before, so it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. And let's see, Aaliyah says, how many people does it take to make a book? Ooh, I would say the whole team is easily more than 50 people. Because if, again, you think about, me writing, there's the illustrator, we both usually have agents, there's the editor, the art director, the rest of the team at the publisher, there's salespeople, there's marketing people, you have the distributors, those are the people that make sure the books are shipped out. You have the printer, all the people that are that, all the folks who are driving the books, the folks who are taking them off the ship and loading them onto the rail cars or the trucks, so many people. And then you get to the people that then help promote the book, right? People who write reviews about it and all that stuff. But to make it, I would say it's easily over 50. Lolita says, in what year did you start writing a book? 2013 was the first time that I started thinking about and drafting a book. And thank you, Mrs. Martin's class, for joining us. So yeah, so nine and a half years ago, I started, but my first book came out in 2018. So 4 years ago, and I've had 7 books out, which is quite a bit in that time frame. So, but when you start writing, they say like have 3 to 5 polished manuscripts if you're writing picture books before you ask for an agent or query an agent for their representation, because they have, a variety of different houses. Not everyone's going to be interested in everything you write. And so I had done that, and Powwow Day was one of those that I queried, in addition to some other things that have since come out and others that are on the way. See, Mark and Justine Marco says, who inspires you to write a book? You know what? I can find inspiration anywhere. Sometimes it's a conversation between people. Sometimes I'll listen to a radio program. We Are Still Here, this turquoise book behind you, that was inspired by, like I say, just wanting to share what I had learned that I didn't learn till I went to college, and saying, no one should be getting out of elementary school without knowing about that. But yeah, I find inspiration in a lot of different places. So I keep a list of ideas. And once I get done with this middle grade nonfiction that I'm working on, I don't have any books after that under contract. So I'm free to write whatever strikes me. And I'm kind of excited about that. I see a question here from Kingsley. How many illustrations are needed to do illustrations in a book? It really depends on the page count. So for a standard picture book, there are 32 pages. This book is a 40-page picture book. So the artist had to do even more work. And sometimes, like with At the Mountain's Base, the artist will choose to do what we call, this is the dust jacket on the outside. and underneath is the case cover. And so they will end up doing a different piece of art. And so I know you can't do this with a library book because it's taped on there. And so don't try to take that off. But if you have the book at the bookstore at home, you can lift up the case cover and you see a very different design. And so this is the finger woven belt when you read the story that the Alicia, the grandma, is making. And that whole design is present throughout the book. And you see it on the end papers on the inside. So it can be quite a bit of art, actually, that they come up with. And then, so the illustrator, makes the pictures. Then there's an art director, and the art director works with them to make sure that the color is correct. But the art director is also the one that designs the cover based on that art. And they do the placement of the text, how, what is it going to look like on the spine? Someone else will come up with some words or copy on the back cover, kind of a little slogan about the book. Someone else writes all of this text inside here. So there's a whole team of people that are involved. But I see a note from Justine. Can you please give tips on how to start writing a book? There's an excellent website called Kidlit, KIDLIT 411. So 411 like info, Kidlit 411. Let me see if it's .com or .org. Check real quick. But that has tons of wonderful links about writing for young people and all kinds of organizations. Like I just say, free things. Let's see here. Kidlit 411. Yep, kidlit411.com. Let me write that in the chat real quick. That's a good resource. I'll also put my email or my website in there. And like I say, you can get information about my books, sign up for my newsletter. Normally it comes out quarterly or seasonally, I say, but I haven't had one out in a while. So I will have one out this winter. And I usually do book giveaways with those too. So if you're interested in keeping up with me, feel free to sign up for that. I realize we're closing out on time. Is there any final question or comments, Dr. Rova Marks?
Anybody have a burning question that they want to ask Traci? If not, I'd love it if we could get a group picture for those if you want to stay on and take a group picture. If you have a copy of the book, if you could hold it up and we can take a couple pictures. Oh, sorry, there's one question.
Okay.
Have you ever wrote a book based on your life experiences? If not, would you? This is
that's a great, Ariana. I do hope to do maybe a memoir for adults at some point or a young adult thing. But no, I have not as yet written about any of my experiences in a book. I mean, there's always a piece of you, of course, in every character, right? Because I'm the person that's, sharing this, but no, but that might be fun. That might be fun. So I want to say wado to everyone, which is thank you. And so if you want to hold your book up, we'll do a photo.
If you're able to show video and hold up their book, that would be wonderful. And then I will screenshot the page and then we'll be good.
Oh, I love seeing them in the classrooms.
There it goes.
Wonderful. Well, again, I hope everyone has a fantastic winter season, that you prioritize self-care, which I'm definitely going to be doing, and just spending time with people that you care about and care about you. Spend time sharing stories and using your creativity, right? That we are people of story. We're all made up of story from the time we're born until the time that we transition to become ancestors. Our lives are made up of story. That's how we make sense of the world around us. So please, please share your stories in words, in song, in video, in your visual art. And just know that I welcome any and all of you to share your stories, because we so need that. That's how we connect to each other and uplift each other. It has just been an honor to spend time with you all today, Wado. And there is no word for goodbye in Cherokee. We say until we see each other again. So I will say Dodada Goha'i, until we see each other again, my friends.
Thank you. That's the perfect sign off. Have a great break, everyone.
Okay.